In not wanting to turn over my weight problem to God, how that has changed for me since I joined the PRISMS program is I had the encouragement and the faith and the scriptures and the testimonies of the other women in the program that were succeeding. It's miraculous. It's like when I come in, every week someone says, "Oh, look at you, you look so great, you're looking wonderful." And for me, to be able just to say thank you is a miracle. It's a miracle. I don't have to hang on to all those old defects of character I had around the fat, around the food. I used to believe that I must have done something really wrong to feel this way about me. And I didn't know what it was that I had done. And what I found out since coming here is I hadn't done anything wrong. I had done everything okay. It was that I wouldn't let go and that God was working on me all along. The transformation from the inside out has been a miracle. I am not the same person I was 9 weeks ago. I feel good about me. I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to say yes. I'm not afraid to say, I don't know. I'm not afraid anymore. The fear is gone. And I spent the biggest part of my life hiding my fear behind the insulation. And I'm not doing that today. That transformation is a process. I feel it go on every day. Every day I learn something new from the process. There's days I'm really stubborn and I don't want to hear it and I don't want to believe it. And God just keeps saying, you will look at this. And sometime during that day and before I give up and go to bed at night, I have seen the difference. Actually, my food addiction is related to the way my life has been, the addiction and the compulsions that I've had in other areas of my life. I'm a chemically dependent person in recovery, and when I started looking at the food addiction, I could see the same thing, the same behaviors, the same attitudes that I'd placed around alcohol, I was placing around food. And I saw the addiction process becoming the power in my life that was leading my life rather than God leading my life. The addiction became the God, and it told me what I was going to do every day and how I was going to act every day. And even though I got into recovery from the alcohol and from the people and places and things that I became addicted to in that process, I never gave up the food. And so I never really got healthy. I never really started to get well. And I feel today like that process is taking place in me. What the program means to me just 9 weeks into it is that it's saved my life. It has saved my life from unhappiness, despair, and I can share that openly with other people. And if someone came up to me today and says, how are you doing it? I tell them about PRISMS. And if they ask for more information, I say, well, come on, we'll go. I'll go with you. Come with me. You don't have to do this by yourself. This isn't a by-yourself program.
Are you ready to begin week 9? We're sure glad you're here. Last week we learned that when we fail to appropriately express strong negative emotions, we allow them to disrupt our mental health, well-being, relationships, physical health, and even our weight loss efforts. You took an extremely difficult step by focusing deeply and honestly on your emotions. Learning things about yourself is rarely easy, but it's definitely an exciting time of new discovery. During this week's class, we'll continue to explore the role of emotions, and we'll have the opportunity to learn more from Tony's special guest, Franny Ritter. We at the PRISM Weight Loss Program are very proud of you. You've worked hard, and you've faced numerous challenges. You've dedicated a great deal of time and attention to your food choices. And as a result, you've been able to break free of physical and emotional addiction to unhealthy foods. For many of you, a spiritual awakening has been fanned into flame, giving you a greater sense of strength to meet each new day. You are closer than ever to becoming the person God created you to be. Have you ever considered who determines your response to a given situation? Who has the power to choose the outcome of your emotions? Notice I said outcome. Negative circumstances will generate negative emotions. We can't simply ignore or reject our feelings because they make us uncomfortable. But ultimately, we have the power and the responsibility to control the outcomes of these feelings. To do that successfully, we must first identify our negative emotions and then apply them constructively. We determine whether our emotions will be debilitative or facilitative. For example, anger can result in a positive outcome if it motivates you to resolve an issue. However, anger can easily destroy if you allow it to burn. Emotions stemming from unresolved issues of betrayal, finances, family relationships, and parenting techniques can be particularly harmful when people assign blame rather than focus on the issues at hand. With emotion, you have to reach a new beginning. If you don't want to live your life feeling miserable, you must consciously trade negative emotions for joy. You're the only one responsible for your feelings. If you truly believe you will get through an emotional situation, you will. Last week, we examined fear, anxiety, and depression. Today, we'll discuss anger, apathy, and perfectionism. When it comes to anger, there's usually an underlying fear, hurt, or frustration. In fact, many overeaters are afraid of being angry, so they eat their anger and appear happy. These genuinely nice people simply will not allow themselves to get angry. However, life can and will make us angry. If we fear anger and try to discard it, it gets pushed deeper into us and may eventually come out as depression. Unfortunately, when you're prone to overeating, depression usually triggers the habit of eating to soothe. Maybe you've heard it said, "I stuff down my feelings with food." Society picks up on that false sense of well-being and calls it being jolly. The person who is overweight but never angry is perceived as jovial. It takes tens of thousands of calories to keep the anger down and the jolly in place. Does that sound like a happy person to you? For those of you afraid of anger, please understand that emotions are neither good or bad. You can't pass a moral judgment on a feeling. Whether you're afraid, hurt, or frustrated, anger must be expressed. If we don't express our anger towards someone else because we fear it will destroy our relationship, we fuel a cataclysmic force which will destroy as it grows. Unexpressed anger is like a savings account continually earning interest. The longer we hold on to it, the bigger it gets. When we finally do let it go, usually by accident, the display can be devastating. That's why no matter how we may struggle with thoughts of feeling angry, we must express it constructively instead of depositing our anger into a savings account. It's time for me to once again introduce Franny Ritter. Franny is a licensed marriage and family therapist who works in private practice in Visalia, California. She received her bachelor's degree in biblical education at Multnomah Bible College and her master's degree in marriage, family, and child counseling at Mennonite Brethren Biblical Seminary. Franny has researched, written, and lectured about how psychological issues affect one's relationship with God. Franny and her husband Don also lead team building and staff development workshops with church leadership teams. Please welcome Tony and Franny as they share some extremely helpful information regarding anger.
Franny, let's talk a little bit about the link between fear, anger, and overeating. Can you comment on those three? Because I know they play an integral part together.
Yes, there's a strong link between the three. Oftentimes, overweight people are seen as happy or jolly. We think of Santa Claus as being jolly or jovial. Oftentimes, people who overeat come from families where they've learned to stuff down all their feelings, especially anger. And for some reason, they feel they're unable or not entitled to express those feelings, especially anger. So the anger gets stuffed down, and they express the positive feelings to other people, and so thus they're accepted. But the anger and the angry feelings stay down, and they continue to eat and stuff pile upon pile of calorie on those feelings. They never come out except for in symptoms, and oftentimes those are symptoms of depression.
And what other, would there be physical symptoms with anger? I would think, maybe ulcers, or is there anything like that connected with anger?
There is some research that link oftentimes bowel problems and stomach problems to unexpressed anger. It's not a clear link. Some people believe it's a clear link, but anger does take its toll on the body. Oftentimes, psychologically, what will happen is anger will come out as resentment toward other people. When they've just done a slight thing toward us, we save up all our anger and it comes out at maybe the postman or the lady at the bank or somebody who's unrelated to us.
I know, too, that it can come out like Mount St. Helens erupting. It's like one little thing, and it's like they've stuffed it so long, and then all of a sudden one thing comes and they just blow up, and it's so out of place, like you say, to yell at the mailman or the clerk behind the counter at the store. So there again, I think they're dealing with, it's about them, not about the person who was rude or slow in taking their check, or the mail wasn't delivered right, that type of a thing.
Yes. Oftentimes people who don't express anger healthily or directly either grew up in homes where rage frightened them. Maybe there was physical abuse linked with rage, or else nobody ever got angry. I have seen many people in my practice who nobody in the family got angry. So the message was the same as it is in physically abusive homes. It's not safe to be angry. Anger is so bad we never do it. And so they never do anger, even though they feel it, and then it gets stuffed down and it stays down through eating.
So can you tell us some constructive ways? How is it healthy to release anger? First of all, give us an example of, when somebody really genuinely has wronged you. What do you do with that anger that you're feeling?
Well, first of all, you let yourself feel it. Oftentimes you have to say, guess what? That really made me mad. And you can feel mad. So talking about your anger is the best way to diffuse that, saying, I'm mad about this, I'm very upset. And that's something that a lot of people aren't taught to do.
That's why I'm asking you how to do it. I'm anxious to hear the answer.
Yeah, our society is not very good at confrontation because oftentimes confrontation ends up in escalation and violence, especially on TV. And so we're not taught to be able to tolerate somebody else's anger. So oftentimes the message is don't be angry, but it's really important when something upsets us to be able to have the freedom to say, you know what, I didn't like that very much. That really upset me. And that can be very healing, and it can keep us from making a savings account out of our anger and letting it earn interest, and then that's when the volcanoes blow.
What about our own role in anger, or in angry feelings, I should say? I'll give you an example. I heard a friend just the other day say a situation that had happened at home. And she made the comment, if he really loved me, he'd know I want him to take out the trash. So she is angry with her husband for him not reading her mind. So I feel like we have a responsibility as far as anger goes too. Can you help me with that?
Yes, that example sounds like a combination of maybe an inappropriate sense of entitlement. In other words, unmet needs from earlier in one's life are carried to the present, and poor communication. People can't mind read, and oftentimes if we grow up in an environment where we've had to read somebody's mind, say our parents, we have to read the environment to figure out whether it's safe or not, then we expect others to be able to read our minds as well as we can read others' minds. But we really need to ask for what we need, and we need to assess if that's appropriate or if we're wanting extra special treatment to make up for times in our lives when perhaps we haven't been treated right.
And so there again, the practice of releasing our anger in an appropriate way, the more we do it, the easier it will become.
Exactly. And sometimes, like in that situation, were these two people to talk about this, and the woman say, I'm angry at you because you didn't take out the trash, both of them had the opportunity to learn a lot of important things about themselves and the other. So even though we're angry, we might not always have the The anger may not be appropriate to the situation, but we may not know that till we've talked about it.
So then how do we discern between what is true anger and what may be an unrealistic expectation on our part?
Well, usually we can't do this alone. We have to check it out with somebody, usually the person we're angry at. And usually we're frightened about that because we want to we want to preserve the relationship. So we might have to say, I'm feeling a little bit upset about this, and I'm not sure whether my anger is correct for the situation or if it's about something else.
Okay, so talk and communication, feeling your feelings, and I guess that's even just honoring yourself, and that it's really okay to be angry. Just don't express it in a negative way.
Yes, and that's honoring the other person too, because you're saying, I care enough about you to be truthful with you, instead of pretending like I'm not angry when I am, or putting you in that awful situation by saying I'm not angry and acting angry to punish you. Being more open and direct is a way of honoring somebody else also.
Again, it's getting past that fear to give ourselves permission to do this, having the courage to tell the truth. And that's hard to do sometimes, but we can do this.
As we close this segment, consider these two scripture passages which counsel us regarding anger. Ephesians 4:26 and 27 says, "Be angry, and yet do not sin. Do not let the sun go down on your anger, and do not give the devil an opportunity." And James chapter 1 verse 19 says in part, "Let everyone be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger, for the anger of man does not achieve the righteousness of God." Now let's shift our focus to the emotion known as apathy. Technically, apathy means to redirect activity elsewhere. This indifference disguises a number of fears, including the fear of disappointment and the fear of meaninglessness. These fears may sound like this. What if I lose a lot of weight and I'm still unhappy? Then there would be nothing to live for. Or this. If I try and fail, it will hurt more than if I don't try and fail, because at least I won't be disappointed. Apathetic people are often caught in a negative way of thinking, so they actively sabotage anything that falls outside of that negative pattern. Predictability seems safer even when it's negative. Tragically, people ensnared by apathy deceive themselves into thinking they're in control. Let's join Tony and Franny once again as they discuss the effects of this important emotion.
Franny, I want to talk to you a little bit now about apathy. Our society seems to link being overweight with being lazy. They're called a couch potato, or they just don't take care of themselves. They must not care about themselves very much. Can you comment on that?
Yes. I have never seen a lazy person in my life, but I've seen a lot of people who looked kind of like couch potatoes on the outside, but were very busy